Okay, everyone. It's officially 8:30 p.m. Let's grab our seats. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. What a group. What a beautiful night. Again, just so you guys know, this is our last night on Code Blue, and we got stuck in the little room, which is good. It worked out perfect. We had a lot of rain today. We'll back to our normal room with the stage and sound system, and everything will be perfect again. Life will go on. The church does a lot of noble stuff for the community. And so the little inconvenience that we can get, great. If you want to help us out at the end, we're going to have to pack this mess up. But until then, we got the world's greatest chairperson. Let's introduce Kara, see what she's got. Give her a warm welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Kara, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Kara.
Welcome home, everybody. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. and speaker at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone from out of town that would like to introduce themselves? First names only.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. With anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Nick?
Excuse me, my name is Nick. I'm an alcoholic. We do have a Venmo account if anyone is interested during the 7th tradition to make a donation. Come see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
And we also accept Bitcoin. The whole point.
Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Coffee is on at 6:15 p.m. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book at the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, then we will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purpose of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar that's marked in big books and CDs at the back of the table. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. Now I'd like to introduce Tom. He's going to come up and read Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Let's give him a warm welcome.
I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
Just for today, prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will become agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And please help us welcome JJ to read the preamble.
My name is JJ. I'm an alcoholic. This here is the AA preamble once I find it. All right, there we go. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organizations, or institutions. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And now Victoria is going to come up and read the 12 steps of recovery.
All right, Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Victoria.
Hey, the 12 steps of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. 7, humbly asked God, sorry, my bad. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Thanks.
The 7th tradition states, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book CDs, events and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce the speaker as a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. I'd like to invite Wendy to come up. She came all the way from Delaware. 2.5 hours, y'all. Let's give her a warm welcome. Woo!
Well, hello. My name is Wendy, and I am alcoholic. So interesting. I am somebody since my second year sober have always introduced myself by my full name because I never want to be anonymous amongst my fellows. It was a big deal for me. How am I going to introduce myself with just my first name? So I always start every time I speak with some important information. Today I have a sobriety date. I got sober January 22nd, 2010. I have a sponsor today. It's interesting. The longer I stay sober, the more that I find that word sponsor to be not as fitting, right? Mentor. We are on a road together. We are doing this together. And it's amazing when I can actually allow somebody to know me and them to know me and us to seek a power greater than ourselves, right? I have the privilege of helping other women, sometimes men, depending on what it is. I really let God dictate that. I have helped whoever needs helped. Really, that's how I found it. A relationship with a higher power. Sometimes that relationship is contentious. I love the idea that my God is big enough that I can be mad, right? Right. Everybody takes a deep breath with that one, right? Because I'll tell you what, staying sober, like I've got sober in a big book study meeting, a primary purpose group. If you've ever not been to a primary purpose group, we study the big book line by line. We look up every word. It is on task, and it's a whole different thing, right? And I got sober in a place where we were all like that, but then I had things happen during my sobriety that made me feel like I was not a part of that. So for me, what I realized is that anything that separates me from other alcoholics does not belong in my program today. Like, I love every single drunk. There is no good AA, bad AA. There is only Alcoholics Anonymous, right? The door is always open for a drunk, and it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to have my hand out, my heart open, and have kindness in my heart. My home group is the Shore Serenity Group. Meets on Friday nights, 6 o'clock at the Lewis Senior Center in Lewis Beach, Delaware. It was so interesting. I get really nervous when I speak because part of my con, right? I come from teachers and preachers. I can talk my way so that you never know who I am, so that I can paint the picture and duck and weave and get far away from the truth. And what I know for certain is that my life depends on telling the truth from this podium, right? And so I was just talking on the way up here, because this is a long ride. I was like, why did I say I'd do this? Literally, I'm like, last night I'm not sleeping. I haven't stood at a podium. I haven't done an hour talk since 2021. And I'm like, why did I say yes? Why didn't I come up with some excuse? And I'm like, well, I guess God can use my character defects, because there's pride. I'm like, oh, they asked me to speak. And so there's all of that stuff. But ultimately, here's the thing, is that if one person walks away with a little bit of hope, if one person can say, yes, I belong here and I want this thing, then that's it. That's all I got, right? So,
Speak up a little bit.
I will try. I've never been told I was quiet. That's amazing. When you were reading just for today, I was like, oh, talk quietly. I don't know if that's possible. All right, so I was born into an alcoholic family. I can say that today because certain members have actually come through the door and called themselves that. Whether they stayed or not, none of my business, right? And so I found alcohol when I was a little girl, right? And it took me a long time to even remember that. I can remember riding around on the tractor with my dad, sipping out of his beer. He left when I was 3. That's how young I was, right? And so the first memory that I have of alcohol, my mom's partner, I can remember sitting on her lap. I remember like it was yesterday, and her hand is shaking, and it's brown alcohol, and the ice is clinking, and I'm scared out of my mind because I know if she drinks that, what will happen? And I remember begging her not to drink, and tears running down her eyes, and then running and hiding until my mom came to pick me up. I was tiny. My sister didn't survive as well as me. She was a little bigger than me. I'd go up in the attic and I'd hide in the rafters until it was safe for me to come out. So for me, I want you to understand, I'm going to paint the picture. I did not come from the background where alcohol was conviviality, right? I did not come from a place where you saw other people enjoying it, having a great time, and it was something that you wanted to be a part of. I feared it. It came with violence, it came with instability, it came with a lot of other things. So it would be one of those things like, I'll stay away from that forever, right? So fast forward to when I'm 12, 6th grade, right? Over with a bunch of friends, spending the night at my friend's house, and her dad's building a bar in the basement. And all the neighborhood kids are over, just kids being kids, curious about this stuff. And I can tell you exactly what we were drinking: Warm Bush beer and apricot brandy. I don't remember much from that night. It took me 3 years sober to realize that was my first blackout. But I came to school on Monday morning, 6th grade. We're walking around the hall, and all I know is that everybody was saying, Wendy the Alkie. Here's the thing, though. I was an uncomfortable kid. I was not somebody who felt like she belonged, right? I was totally self-conscious, and all I wanted to do was to fit in. But what happened for me when I drank alcohol was that the minute they said that, the thought that came to mind is they will never see me drink like that again. Not that I wouldn't drink like that again. I couldn't wait to get it again. When I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in November 2009, I had had 19 years in our sister fellowship. I had tried, here's the thing, is I went to marriage counseling, and the marriage counselor, I already knew how to lie about my drinking. I knew from a young age. When you grow up in that kind of family, you know how to lie, you know how to scheme. I know how to read the room and tell you what you want to hear, right? And so we sit in front of a marriage counselor, and she declares him alcoholic, and me, I need Al-Anon. And I was like, yes. Right? And then for 19 years, I would never tell the truth to anybody. I would go to these meetings and I would concentrate on him or them. And I would work spiritual principles, but I would never be completely honest, and I'd never understand a step one. And then I ended up face down. Because here's the thing. The first time that I quit drinking, I was 18 years old. I drank from 12 to 18. I got it wherever I could, right? I didn't have alcohol in my house, and so you have to lie and scheme and con in order to drink the way that I wanted to drink. And so on my way to college, I had gone out on a 3-day run. I was living in Rehoboth Beach. I wasn't from there, but we were summering there. And literally, my mom had to track me down to throw me in the car. She'd already packed up all my stuff. And literally, I'm like driving from Rehoboth to Philadelphia, and I'm saying to myself at 18, the gig is up. The gig is up, Wendy. You're going to be grown up now, right? Which is crazy if you think about it. I'm not even of legal age, and I'm already like, you're going to be a grown up now. You're going to school. You're going to art school. And I get in there, and within 2 weeks, we find out the bar at the corner will serve us. I'm the only one that has to be carried in through the guards. I am the only one that missed the first 3 day of classes. I'm the, and this is how it was for me, right? And so, the book talks about when I first came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was confused. I had been trying to quit and to control my drinking from the age of 18, and I got sober at 38, 39. It's a lot of years of control. It's a lot of years of lying. It's a lot of years of management. And there were periods where it seemed like I was doing well. But like the book says, right, whenever you want to quit entirely, I could quit. I could quit. But the idea of quitting entirely, it never dawned on me. It never dawned on me. And then to control the amount, here's the thing is that I would remember the 1 or 2 times within the year that I could sit down like a lady and have a glass of wine at dinner. And I would hold on to those memories of that 1 or 2 times. But I had no idea what was going to happen if I drank, right? And I had no ability to tell you that. And if you caught on, I would stop hanging out with you. Right? My friends just changed. So I come in, I bottom out. Part of my story is that I go to college. It's the first time I go to quit, and then I'm off to the races again. And then I end up pregnant at 19, and I have a baby. And so here's the thing is that they say, an alcoholic is somebody who cannot quit. That's what I always heard, right? And so I get pregnant. I quit. I didn't drink my whole pregnancy. I didn't drink for 9 months after my pregnancy. Now, mind you, you take a person like me who needs alcohol, and I don't drink, and then I'm in a relationship, I'm married, I have a baby, and I'll tell you what, that when I was dry in that period, I think the neighbors called the cops more than ever. I was a screaming, banshee, crazy person. But when I drank again, things calmed down. These are things that I never understood until I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll have to say that, in the end, I wished, when I came in, I wished I would go to First Step meetings and I would hear these resume of destructions, and I'd be like, I want, Ralph White, AA speaker. I've listened to a lot of speakers, but he says, I want a penitentiary story without going to the pen, right? That's me. I want to have, you said it to Kristen before I got up here. I was like, every time I do something like this, I'm always like, I'm not a good enough alcoholic. I don't have a gritty enough story. I didn't have any DUIs, Now, mind you, I was fine partying with you. I would always give you the keys because I don't drink and drive. Now, I'm fine with you drinking and driving and risking my life and everybody else's life on the road, but I'm not going to do it. I mean, that's selfishness, right? I'm like, that's how I am wired. But I get to the rooms of AA, and literally, my whole life was being a mom, right? It was being a mom. And I always say it must be my son's karma and not mine, right? Because I listened to all kinds of other moms who just didn't have that, right? And alcoholism tore through them and they had no ability, but whatever reason, it was a calling and I could show up for him. He left for college, and in a short amount of time, I was flat out, but I didn't understand what was wrong. So literally, I am the type, I went on every anonymous program that there is, because I would much rather be. I would rather be a debtor, an under-earner, a overeater, a sex and love, like you name it. I would rather treat every other thing than actually have to give up alcohol. But this is the blessing, and this is the creativity of my generous higher power, is that there are none of those meetings at the beach. I live in a community, so we were pulling up, and I'm like watching younger people come in, young men come in, and I'm like, I am not used to speaking with that. Like, we don't have that. I live in a place where it's all retirement people. It is a whole other kind of ball game of alcoholics. We were just, as we were sitting up here, it's like a different energy. It's a different thing. Yeah, so like I come into AA and it's open AA meetings. I don't want to call myself an alcoholic because that means I can't drink. I mean, I know. I don't want to be dishonest or anything, you know. And so I would introduce myself as an addict. I stayed only at open meetings. This meeting is not a meeting I would come to, right? Unless I sat in the back and I didn't have to say anything and I got here late and I left early. And that's how it was. And I knew too much for my own good if you called on me, because I had been a good member in another fellowship. I could tell you all about the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and I could talk to you and I could spin a web so that you totally stay really far away from me, and then I would walk out and I felt miserable and alone. Miserable and alone, right? And I was not drinking as part of another fellowship. It's like, oh, I shouldn't do that. It's a bad thing. But I wasn't willing, you know. And I found myself, I don't know about you, but, you know, what I understand today is that alcohol is a solution for me. That when I drank, you know, I go all the way back, not to my last drink, when it stopped working and I couldn't stop, and the obsession. Like, that part is another part of my step one, but the true part of my step one is that I'm 12 years old. I see the destruction it causes in people's life. But when I drank it, that was it. I knew I had to have more. I always had to have more. And anything big in my life that ever happened, I drank. You know, Bill's story, it talks about the markets crashing and men were jumping from high towers. And they said, it's not me. I went to the bar. You know, and that, I related with that, right? You know, like, the world's crashing down around me. I have burnt all options again. It's all right, I can drink. It's all right, all will be well, right? And I always remember that sense of ease and comfort that comes with that first drink. Sometimes even with just the promise that I will drink. You know, it just held on to me. So I come into AA as a straggler, right? Thank God for the women who were kind enough. You know, these are the people that I absolutely remember, that they were kind enough to take me to coffee and listen to my crazy stories. They were kind enough to, no matter how I tried to say that I am not a part of all of you, that they greeted me at the door. They said they were glad to see me. They listened to me. They asked me to coffee. Those, like, without them, I would never have even had a fighting chance. So fast forward, though, like, I don't know about you, but if alcohol is a solution, trying to come to AA meetings, just hang out, you know, because that's all I was doing. I was, like, hanging out. Like, trying to get, it's like trying to say you're a baseball player, but you've never walked on a field and picked up a bat, right? You know, I'm just, like, sitting in the audience expecting to get what you have and wondering why this isn't working for me, right? And so I got crazy. I got crazy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I was sitting and not drinking and going to meetings, and I had some things happen. I think that this is things, life is lived forward and understood backwards. And what I can say is that, I can see now that it was like that jumping off place. My son had been my world. He got in trouble at college. He'd never been in trouble ever. And then I had to go to Savannah to pick him up and bring him home from college. And while we were there and while we were driving home, we got the news that one of his best friends from high school had just hung himself in jail as a result of drug addiction, right? 19. And I'll tell you, I started thinking about a drink. Here's the thing, I hadn't had a drink in almost 9 months. Going to meetings. I do have a sponsor. We go to lunch. I get her talking about herself. It's really great. We stay far away from Wendy. I'm really good at this. I can always get you talking about you, so I don't have to talk about me. And I'm thirsty. I move into a different house. I'm renting space in somebody's house. I open the refrigerator, and there's raspberry sake, and I've never had raspberry sake. And I run into somebody in the neighborhood that, I used to drink with, and they're really cool people running the Independent Film Festival, and I want to be with them. I want to go hang out and have a beer, dogfish. It's just on me. And I'm grieving because this young man was somebody who spent the night at my house, who we had long talks, that this is somebody I cared about, somebody my son deeply cared about. And by the grace of God, I walked into a meeting, and somebody said, "Hey, will you lead on step 2?" And I didn't want to do that. And I opened my mouth, and the most amazing thing happened. The truth came out. The truth came out. And the most unlikely character in the room, this woman who here's the thing is that I love is that, I might not have good sobriety, but I'm judging all of you on what you're doing. And so, this is one of those people, every time she'd open her mouth, I'd kind of roll my eyes in my head, right? Now, mind you, she was sober probably 30, 35 years at that point. She was different. She was really different. Every time we said the Lord's Prayer, she'd scream out, "Goddess!" And she wouldn't wear shoes, and she said that we were always spiritual beings having a human experience. She always, she had her thing, right? And so I share this. I don't realize what I've even said, and she speaks up, and she's like, "Isn't it crazy? I haven't had a drink in 9 months. You just hear how somebody's taken their own life as a result of addiction, and you want to drink." I was like, oh, there it is. And that's it for me as an alcoholic, right? I will always come back to that as a solution, unless something miraculous happens. But I don't understand that yet, right? Because I have a sponsor. She's given me some Hazelden handouts to figure out step 1. We haven't talked about it, though. We haven't talked about it at all, right? And so I start to get uncomfortable. And, grace of God, put somebody else in my life, and they say, "I think you need a step sponsor." Today, I understand what she meant by that. But I was like, "What do you mean? What is that?" And she's like, she says I don't even remember what she said, but she's like, "You'll know." And then I went to a meeting. I went to a woman's meeting, and this woman was there who, by the way, multiple people had said, "Hey, you should probably ask her to sponsor you." And she scared me. She scared me. She was a little woman, big Harley. And man, she did not mince words. She carried this blue book around, right? She scared the living daylights out of me, right? She's going to hurt my feelings. I'm sensitive. Anyway, so I go to this woman's meeting. She's not usually there. She was there that day. This is the crazy thing that happens, right? She opens her mouth and she describes exactly how I am feeling. Sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. No power. Alcohol's gone, my power source is gone. She talks about that ache on the inside that never goes away. And then she says, if anybody really wanted to help me, they'd ask me to sponsor them. I knew. It was just like drinking, right? My last drunk, so I came in November 2009. I came in on a crazy relationship and craziness, and I didn't understand. And the drinking was all wrapped up in that, but I would never have told you that when I walked in. And I didn't drink from November until January. And then I went out of town on business, and I was at a client's house, and I walk into the kitchen, and he is pouring a glass, beautiful bottle of red wine. He's a very wealthy man, and so he's pouring it, and he's like, Wendy, you have to try these glasses. I found them on our trip in Tuscany. This is the best wine. It's so well designed, you have to have a glass of wine. And I had no thought whatsoever. I said, thank you. I said, thank you. How beautiful this is, right? No thought whatsoever. Suddenly, and this is it. And I can't say that I went off to the races. What happened for me that night was I was out of town. I went and met another client and drank with them. Went home, took a bath. I had a few drinks. It wasn't a wild time, but what I can tell you is that it didn't touch any of it. It was done. I was stuck. It didn't work anymore. And that is a loneliness. There's nothing like that loneliness. And the next day, my friend called, and she'd been coming to AA because she's got food addiction. And she hadn't drank alcohol as part of her food plan. And so she called and she said, I just picked up a 30-day coin. And today what I can tell you is it was grace. Because I have no idea why that made me say, oh my gosh, the gig is up. I'm done. And in the beginning of my sobriety, listen, when I talk about that time of like when I came in to like when I ended up finding somebody to get me into the big book, I think every day, multiple times a day, I would say, you're not going to drink this hour. You know, you're not going to, I white-knuckled it, right? I went to a lot of meetings, very fortunate to go to a lot of meetings, but that's only because I didn't like any of you. I didn't like any of you. I was too cool for all of you. Too smart, too cool, too spiritual. I was too much. And so I literally, I live at the beach, and that's a whole other thing on the off season, right? And not anymore, but that's a different story. But I lived in Rehoboth, and I would drive all the way down to West Ocean City, which is all the way down almost to Virginia, and then I would drive all the way up to Dover. Sometimes I would go wherever because I was looking for the cool people where I fit in, right? So that's a lot of work. I was super tired by 8 or 9 months. When you're just holding on for that and going to meetings and not drinking and trying to figure out where it is, and oh man, it was exhausting. And so what I didn't understand, and here's this woman, and she says this in this meeting, and I know the gig is up. Again, I know the gig is up. I just know it. It's like this, it's grace. It's that inside knowing. And so I walked up and I asked her to sponsor, and when she said, this is what I love about this, right? She's like, we're going to pick up the big book, and we're going to read it. When it tells you to do something, we're going to put it down. You're going to do it, and then we're going to pick up. If I ask you to do anything that's not in the book, you don't have to do it. I'm just sharing my experience. I love that. It kept it so simple, right? Because I came in contentious. I came in educated. I came in knowing better than everybody. I had actually been like a trained meditator. Like I came in spiritual, too spiritual for my own good. My spiritual pride nearly killed me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so here it is, and we pick up the book, and literally, so the first time she has me meet her, she says, meet me at the beach. Bring the book. You want me to get a bathing suit on and bring my big book to the beach? It didn't make any sense, right? So I get to the beach, and the coolest thing that happens is that, so we open the book, and it's like she's qualifying me. I don't understand that she's qualifying me. I don't know what she's doing. I'm a yeah, but girl. I'm a yeah, but you don't understand. My good friend Judy, in the beginning of my sobriety, called me uniqua. Told me I suffered from a case of terminal uniqueness. You know what I love today is that I'm just a drunk. I'm just one of you. I don't want to be anything unique. I don't want to be anything special. I just want to be one of you. So the first thing that sponsor did for me is she opened to page 44 and she asked me 2 questions. She's like, we're not going to complicate this. We're not going to look at that long 20 questions. We're just going to ask the 2 simple questions, right? And that is, when you want to quit entirely, you cannot. Or when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take. And I'm like, well, but... And this is what I love, is because she did something that's not in the book, but it saved my life. She didn't argue with me or tell me go drink some until I'm ready. She didn't tell me any of those things. She didn't say wild experiments. She had me turn to the 9-step promises. And she said, I want you to read them, but in the beginning of each sentence, I want you to say, when I drink alcohol. So I'm standing there, hot. I mean, it is hot. It is like a July day, Rehoboth Beach, beachside, hot sun, standing there awkwardly, holding my book, wondering what she's even doing. And I start reading, right? When I drink alcohol, I know a new freedom and a new happiness. Yeah. When I drink alcohol, I do not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door. No, I will tell you all about it and tell you how it can help you, because I know better. And I'm standing there and I'm reading them, and I literally get goosebumps over my whole body. And she looked me in the eyes and she said, she held up the book from page 44 to page 85, and she said, we need to find you a better power source, Wendy. It happens between these pages. I was like, hopeful and scared, right? Hopeful and scared. She scared me. She really scared me. And so here's the thing, is what I learned is that for me, I am not one of those people who comes into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, gets one sponsor, keeps it for the whole lifetime, and that's it. I'm somebody that has struggled with relationships. I've struggled with relationships. I've struggled with authority. And so I've had different sponsorships, and I'm grateful for that today because I've had different perspectives on what's going on, different eyes on the story. The other thing that it has given me a deep reliance on a power greater than myself, the God of my understanding, and not on the people around me. People are fallible, alcoholics especially. So there's no pedestals to be put on, there's no pedestals to fall off of. All of a sudden, it's just what this really is about, is getting me hooked up into a power source, right? And that's really hard for a girl like me who already came in full of God, full of all kinds of spiritual study and some crazy ways of controlling my alcoholism. I mean, I saw it all, like shamans, psychics, you name it. I have been a part of that kind of spiritual group. I did all of that in order to not be alcoholic, and I ended up here anyway, right? So when they say, power greater than yourself, I had to actually put away all the things that I see people seek. I had to put away any understanding that I had about God, and I had to look at what you all had. I had to see the lights on in people's eyes. And so she sat me down, and here's the thing, having a step 1 when I had lied to so many people, and I didn't have this big list of consequences, right? Like, I was in Al-Anon all that time. So I had to be under the, it's so crazy. Like, I was this going to raves on opposite weekends, and like I did some crazy stuff, and I do not know how I did not get caught doing any of it. I don't know how I didn't get in trouble. That is a mystery that is not mine to even look at. Why is something I have been fired from asking? What I know is that when I came in here, I needed it to be simple. I needed not to have a resume of destruction. I needed to understand that when I drank alcohol, it did something to me it didn't do to a normal person, right? And when I try to quit, I could never quit entirely because I can't be without that power, right? And then the craziest part, I think the most chilling part of step 1 is my mind. right? I recently read more about alcoholism with a friend of mine who is struggling with another addiction, and she's having a lot of trouble, and she asked for some help. And understanding the mind of an addict, the mind of an alcoholic, it's so different, right? You know, I love the story of the jaywalker, because that is so me, you know, and I love it's in its absurdity, it tells my story. Like and even, because the way that my alcoholic mind works, so when I came in here, I had to understand how it worked around drinking, right? That no matter what incomprehensible moral thing that went wrong in my life, there was always a moment where I said, I think I was making too much of that. It must have been his fault. It was always their fault. It was never mine. And then I would drink again. This time it will be different. This time I will be able to enjoy and control my drinking. I mean, I love that, you know, the little ands, right? You know, enjoy and control. Because I could control, because, like, I don't know, like, I would come up with all these schemes of how I can. Normal people don't ever think about drinking like that. You know, I would plan it out. If I was going to drink in front of people, it would be painful, but I would figure out how to carry around that glass of wine and make it last for just as long as I could. And I would stay just as long as I needed to stay so that nobody knew what was happening when I wasn't there. Nobody knew what was happening before I came, and nobody knew what would happen when I go home, and I would look normal. And then you, when I doubted it, you would tell me, no, Wendy, you just had a bad night. So that first sponsor, that's what she did. She took me through the big book, and literally, we read the doctor's opinion. So I was sponsored. I'm grateful she sponsored me the way she did. She didn't tell me to read it by myself. That would have been a disaster. I see that with people. They say, go home, read the doctor's opinion, and we'll talk about it. No, look, this is the thing, is that I got your number. I'll tell you everything that you want. I will impress you, and then I will be miserable because I won't get it in here. So she sat down and she read it with me, word by word, line by line, and she would stop and she'd say, do you ever feel like that? Never, what happened? You know, like, we would talk about it. She would share her experience and I would share my experience. And literally, I still hear her voice in my head, is that as we would go through it, she'd be like, Wendy, that's not normal. Because I had such a hard time seeing some of the stuff that I did. I grew up in an alcoholic family. I was not of the variety, just thought I could, like, go for it and go crazy. I did a lot of controlling. I did a lot of stopping and starting. I did a lot of really nutty things. And I am deeply grateful to the bottom of my heart that she took the time to do that with me, right? When we got to step 2, you know, I love it. I can remember reading it for the first time, page 45, where it says, lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power that worked, and that's exactly what this book is about. And that was it. That changed my life. I've been looking for the book. I've been looking for the manual my entire life, something that was going to fix Wendy, right? And this idea of, like, going about it different. And I had to lay aside all the ideas I had, because I would argue with you, because I knew God better. Like, I knew how to find him. I had spiritual practices. I drank through spiritual practices. I went away on meditation. You always find your people no matter where you go. I go on big trainings, and I would end up I'm not supposed to be drinking. I'd sneak off to the bar, and I'd find my people. They're always there. I'm like being spiritual and meditating and drinking my ass off that night. And so here it is, step 2. And one of the best analogies I saw is, I've heard speakers say, is, you know, the gas lights that they have in London. And there's always a guy who goes to light the gas lights. And so you can't see him lighting the lights, but you can see where he's been. And this idea that when I look around the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I see the lights on people. And I had to get it really simple and keep it simple. That when I'm in here, because this is the thing, like, I don't ever want to cause conflict with somebody or stand in the way of somebody finding contact with higher power. And so I keep who my God is and what those practices are outside of a room. That way it gives us all this anonymity. The speaker, Dancy, Native American, he says, you know, that we zip off these human suits and we put them at the door and we walk in and we're just alcoholics. What an amazing thing, right? And so I had to put it all aside. I had to have what you all have. You know, lately in the last couple of years, I have come to say, God as we understand God. Meaning when I walk in here, there's something really incredible happening. There's something amazing happening, right? We're not using. That's incredible. That's a power greater than myself, period. And this idea of, I saw those shiny, happy people. I wanted what they had, right? And so step 2 was that, came to believe that something else, just not Wendy, not Wendy's great ideas, not any more of my research and dissertations about who God was, what practices are the right practices, any of that stuff. I had to put it all aside. And for me, step 3, my favorite part of step 3, getting into step 3, has everything to do. I was, in my second year sober, I was nearly homeless and sober, and contemplating whether I would have to give up my dog, who was the love of my life, or live in my car homeless with my dog. And I went to a woman who, I hope for everybody they have somebody like this. I had heavy big book sponsorship, and then I had Ginger. When I got sober, I think she had a 40-year sober at least. She died a month shy of her 50th anniversary. She would have been 54. She would have celebrated 54 years March 15th. But she, I called her my fairy god sponsor, because she had so many sponsees she couldn't sponsor me. But man, I'll tell you what, I get phone lists, I'd call people wouldn't call me back, and it would be whatever it is. But if I called her and she took 24 hours to call me back, she would apologize. She was serious about this thing. But she had grace, and she had dignity, and she had kindness. And that's how she was. She loved you whether you were drinking or you weren't drinking, whether you said this was your thing or this wasn't your thing. Her love did not come with a price, ever. And she was also the one who kind of saved me when, I didn't have a full step 1. Because the book does not tell me to do an inventory. It doesn't tell me to do a drinking inventory. It doesn't tell me to know any of those things. It asks me these simple questions and we keep moving. And I'm grateful for that. I wouldn't have stayed if it wasn't that. I need an experience. But I'm almost homeless, and I go to her, and I want her to order me around. Because you know what? I was ordered around by my other sponsor. But she wouldn't. She had dignity. She's like, I don't know, I'm not God. But what I can suggest to you to do is read 60 to 63 out loud and in the first person. If you've never done it, try it. I am the actress who wants to run the whole show, who's forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery. I just want people to do what I want. And man, powerful. Step 3. So when I first did step 3, what it was the decision to go on with the rest of the steps. I have a good friend in Big Book Study down in Ocean City, and he'd say, how you know you finished step 3 is you've made your last amend from your amends steps. That's how you finish your step 3. It's that willingness to go through with it. And then launching into that inventory. And here's the thing. So my first one was just enough to launch me in, to get as much on the paper, to have the truths come out. I can't say, we knelt to do that 3rd step prayer. She told me who her God was. I went home and thought, I am never doing inventory with this woman. I have one of my first things on my list is her God. We're in trouble. I think that's where I learned, sometimes I selfishly want to praise what's going on with me without consideration that it could be the thing that makes somebody walk out that door. And so, we did the inventory. I can't say that I had great, I didn't, like some people say they did the inventory, they got free, it was great, right? And that's not what happened for me. I can remember driving home, I had to drive by Rehoboth Avenue, which Dogfish Head, the brewery, was right there, and it was October. They just started their pumpkin ale. I was thinking about it the whole way home. I was not free. I just told her everything. I didn't leave anything out that I was aware of. And I did what she said. I went home, I set the timer, I put the book on the shelf. I looked at my inventory for an hour, and I thought about pumpkin ale. I was not free. I wasn't free. So here's the thing, is most of these things, I've done the steps, and I can say I've done them begrudgingly. I haven't done them because I thought that I needed or wanted them. I did them because, I don't know, fear, good fear, right? Good fear. I don't think fear is a bad thing. I think when you're driven by fear, it's a bad thing, right? I have a healthy fear of drinking. I have a healthy fear of these things, but it's not that driven fear. But I will say that we met up. We did 6 and 7. It was really simple. It's just straight out of the book. I did not have a sponsor who wanted to give me a list of all these character defects to look at. I'm grateful at that point that's the way it was. And what she said is do the list. Make a list. Really easy. Just take your 4-step and make a list. It took me so long to make that list. But then I got into amends and I got free. If there's any part of this thing, it's kind of like when you talk about when I was out there and I was drinking and going to parties and raves and all this stuff, you tell the best stuff where it was. You want to be where it's happening. Man, the men's is where it's happening. It's the most hallmark. It's the most hallmark promises that there are in the book, right? And that is just when we are halfway through. If we were painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. The amends process. The amends process, right? And so I started making amends, and this is the amazing thing that happened for me, is that I didn't know how I was going to change these things that had been so ingrained in me. I didn't know how to have an experience with God. I had an understanding and I had language around it, but I had no ability to have this deep hole filled. And my sponsor at the time said, Wendy, you do esteemable things and you get self-esteem. Self-esteem is not loving yourself. It's not any of those things. It's doing esteemable things. And so I went about making amends. And first I did it so alcoholically. I started getting that high from making these amends, and I just wanted to line up everybody and make them listen. Don't you know I have amends to make? And it's funny how that works, because then they get all clogged up and it just doesn't happen, and then it becomes God's time and not my time. I get to show people what it is to be a sober grown-up lady. I get to walk with dignity and respect. I get to show people before I go running my mouth again. I don't get to hurt anybody. And then, I get into step 10, 11, and 12. Here's the thing. I was halfway through my amends. My sponsor introduced me to the entire women's group and said, if you really like Wendy, somebody will ask her to sponsor you. I did not feel qualified. And when I went to her, because somebody did, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, good, you don't. You take God, you say a prayer, and you open the book. You do exactly for them what I did for you. If they've got problems that you have no experience, don't try to help them. You will only hurt. And she's like, tell them to get a network, tell them to call people. There are enough people in Alcoholics Anonymous that have had their problems, and read Working with Others. And so I literally work with people straight out of Working with Others. Upon the first meeting, I do everything word by word. What I have found in this book is that it gives you really pertinent directions. And I'll say the joy of living has been, for me, helping other alcoholics. Whether it is facilitating a big book study, whether it is sponsoring, I've always done some kind of upper level service and inner group. I've always done some kind of thing. But what I'll say really quick, because I know we're at the end, and that is that staying sober longer, I often reflect that this book was written when the person who had the most sobriety had 3 years. Dr. Bob died at 10 years. Right? We have this idea that staying sober longer requires some deeper work and some emotional maturity and being able to relook at this. And In the beginning, I would bang people over the head with a book. Like, I would literally go to meetings, they called me Thumper, was not a happy, cute Thumper, because I was sure I was going to set everybody right. You're not talking about the book, you're not talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I found is that there's a line on page 61 where they're talking about the beginning AA meetings, and they talk about, the lack of intolerance of any kind. The general democracy. These are the things that make it irresistible. And the idea that, we all have a place here regardless. If you're not free, there's a great way to get free. But here's the thing is that if we can't keep the doors open to every single drunk, no matter what they're doing, then that's something that I have to look at myself, right? And I've stayed sober long enough where I've had all kinds of things go wrong. I think the best thing I ever bring to the table, are the character defects that have made me mess up 100%, where I have put my tail between my legs, thought I didn't even deserve to be here. And this is the thing is that I didn't drink. I usually make it to a meeting, I find somebody and I tell the truth. I make amends where it's applicable, and I get to helping somebody else. And there is not one thing that I have done wrong in Alcoholics Anonymous that I haven't turned around and God made useful helping another alcoholic. So the promise is that no matter how you're feeling, right? It's the beginning, I think it's the forward to the second edition where, or maybe it's the end of There's a Solution. If you haven't found, we do not have a monopoly on alcoholism. And you can even see that in the rooms of AA. There are tons of people that you go to meetings, and I could never do what they do. I don't know how some people can come for 20 years and they love the fellowship, and that's it. They have coffee, sometimes bad coffee, and they just hang out. They don't ever do any work whatsoever. They don't believe in God. They don't have any of that stuff, and that is enough for them. I used to judge that. How do I know that that's not exactly how they need to do it? I've got no monopoly on this recovery from alcoholism. But what I can tell you is that I have sat in the rooms and not felt a part of. I've sat in the room saying all the right things, feeling 100% alone. And if you're sitting there and you feel that way, find somebody, tell them, and get into the book. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Brian. I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Wendy for driving all the way out here tonight, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery to our group here. A couple quick announcements and we'll wrap up the meeting. As always, the food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock, so if you want to show up here early, enjoy the refreshments, the coffee we put out, socialize. If you want to get involved with this group, get involved in some service, we appreciate it. There's always a lot of moving parts to setting up the meeting. This group is all about service. We do have H&I commitments. We have a running commitment in Quakertown on Sunday nights, so if you'd be interested in doing something like that, coming out to the front lines, helping the sick and suffering, see me, see Ron. After the meeting. There's always a meeting after the meeting, so if you want to hang out, if you want to help us, we'll probably have some extra breaking down the meeting after the meeting. We got to put the chairs away over there. We want to thank our speaker for coming out. It's customary for us to thank our speakers. We form a line. We thank our speakers personally, and we're going to close it with the Lord's Prayer. We'll close down the meeting, as always, with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back at works if you work it. Good
stuff.